Welcome to Front Porch Tales, sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services in Roanoke, Virginia. My name is Linda Balentine, the founder of Crowning Touch and your host for this series. We invite you to sit a spell with us and listen to stories that emanate from the heart of Appalachia. In fact, right now, here in Central Appalachia, I'm sitting with Darlene Hill, a mountain woman for over 45 years. You don't live long in the mountains without collecting tales, and Darlene has some tales to share, both historical and current. She and her husband Chip live on a farm in Highland County, Virginia, and their porch is so inviting, so let's get on with it. So if you hear dogs scratching or barking in the background, that's just typical front porch in Highland County, right, Darlene?
Right, that's right. And if the dogs scratch, they need flea medicine.
And there's plenty of fleas out here, along with everything else. But we love Highland County. It's a very special place. And so we wanted to give you all, people, guest listeners who may never have a chance to visit, just a glimpse back. And as well as a glimpse at where the people are at now that live and enjoy Highland County. So it's just stories, tales of Highland County. And we've got several male guests, and I decided that we need a female guest. So I invited Darlene, and she graciously said she would come and share stories because she's enjoyed living out here for all of these, 48 years, ever since she got married. She came to this beautiful farm. How many acres are here?
Oh, let's see, about 80 right here.
80.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, did you let the chickens out this morning?
No, but
because I didn't
did.
see him. Oh, he did. Because I didn't see him or hear him.
They're up in their pen. He's not going to let them all the way out.
Oh, he doesn't let them all the way out.
Well, he will, but they don't need to be down here crowing.
And so we won't get to hear the chickens scratching and chasing, eating the dog food. And all the stuff.
Yeah, and they do eat the dog food.
I had chickens. I can't remember them eating the dog food, but you've got a different brood out here.
Well, every time they hear the dog food pan, which the dog food pan is an old frying pan, when they hear the dog food pan hit the cement on the porch, then they start running. And the dog has to eat fast because they'll be down here trying to eat his food.
Well, I'm surprised those chickens aren't intimidated because you got a couple of big coon hounds here.
That's right.
Besides a little amigo dog.
Yeah.
It's something that I've noticed. The men have hunting dogs, and the women always have a little dog inside the house.
A companion.
To keep them company.
Yeah.
Because actually there's a real division of labor out here that is very interesting. And it's a natural division of labor. It's one that I came to appreciate. I only lived here for 25 years, and I left 30 years ago.
Right.
So, but one of the things I learned coming from the city out here was that the division of labor really made sense. And I was a real feminist when I showed up. But I'll tell you, I got a whole new respect for testosterone. There was no way I was going to go out and cut the wood. I could help bring it in with our workhorse.
Right.
And once it was cut up, I had no problem shuffling it to the porch and then keeping the wood stoves burning and all of that. But I wasn't going to go cut the tree down. It just wasn't, it wasn't me. I could haul water and I could do that kind of stuff. But when it came time to hunting deer and dragging it down the mountain and gutting it, that was his job.
Right, yeah.
And I really, really appreciated it. And so it was very relaxed. And I had no resentment being inside a house with babies crawling around and canning food and doing the things that just made survival, it just made survival sense.
Yeah.
Because the men had their job. And I really, really respected them. And it gave them a real chance to shine. All that big muscle movement and all that stuff that they're, so good at, the strength and the guidance. I'm telling you, if there was a bear coming into the yard or something attacking the chicken coop, I didn't have to reach for the gun. He reached for the gun. And, just to fire it into the air. But he could have shot it. Now, I learned how to shoot a gun because I had to kill the groundhogs that were making holes in my horse pasture and running a risk, to the horse could break a leg, so groundhogs were not welcome.
Right.
But I had friends that shot groundhogs and even cooked groundhogs. And before we started this today, you were telling me that there is a way to cook groundhog and make it more palatable than if you don't know about the scent gland. Why don't you go ahead and tell me what you know about cooking groundhog? Because they used to cook groundhog to survive out here.
That's right. That was meat.
That's right.
That's right. Where you got your protein.
So tell me the tricks about cooking groundhog. What do you know about cooking groundhog?
Well, not a whole lot. We don't need to cook groundhog anymore, so I'd rather go to the grocery store and buy a box or chicken or something like that. But I know that you have to clean it real well, and then you have to, after it's been skunned.
What's that mean?
That means you skin it.
Oh.
But anyway, you have to remove a scent gland, and that's around the anal area.
Right.
And then it has a few scent glands other places, like in the neck area, but mostly it's in the anal area. And you have to remove that and then wash it real good. But then you have to get a big pot, because sometimes they're pretty fat.
Yeah.
And submerge it in water and parboil it. And by parboiling, I mean you just put it down there and you don't cook it, but you want to tenderize it.
Have you taken the head and the feet off and the tail off and all that? Is that part of the skinning?
Yeah, that's part
process.
of the skinning.
All right, so you've got this carcass.
Yeah. And once you've parboiled it, you got to pour that water out and then put salt water in it and parboil it some more.
Wow.
And then pour that water out. And that's not edible water. It's just to get the rank
good grief.
smelling out of the meat. And then you can roll it in flour, salt, and pepper, and fry it.
Right.
And it's pretty good if you do that. But boy, if you just cut it up and don't parboil it, or they don't remove this scent gland,
Right.
it's not edible.
Well, I don't know what happened, when I cooked my first wild turkey that I shot and then carried all the way back to the house. Mm-hmm. And I had, Bill Will was showing me how to do that. So, we boiled it and defeathered him and did all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I stuck him in the oven. It was my Thanksgiving turkey. It was a big tom. Uh-huh. And I'd really worked hard to get that turkey there. So I was really proud of this turkey. And it was god-awful terrible.
Yeah,
so I don't know what
tough.
I should. It was just tough as an old boot, I thought, give me my butterball.
That's right.
because
that's how all...
But there was probably a way to cook that. Does slow cooking render the meat more tender? There was probably a way to tenderize it. I'm sure some Indian or some pioneer probably would have done a much better job with that daggone bird.
Yeah.
Toms are still tough anyway.
Yeah.
They've been
I didn't have much luck with my wild turkeys. No.
Okay.
Well, go to all that work to pluck those feathers out.
I know.
And then you have to skin it, really. I think skinning is the best idea.
Oh, okay.
Instead of just plucking the feathers, you skin it. But I didn't do that either. Well, and I had this old timer showing me how they did things, and so I certainly was in no position to argue. I just did exactly what he told me how to do. Yeah,
he wasn't around to taste it. I'm sure
I've had a lot of old timers tell me how to do stuff.
Well, it's wonderful though. Actually,
no, it isn't.
Oh,
Some of it's just nasty.
Oh no!
It just tastes terrible.
Oh, you mean in cooking things?
Yeah. I've had people tell me how to do stuff, and you think, boy, that seems unusual. And you do it, and it tastes unusual.
Well, it's a woman's world out here in the mountains was, I'm not going to say restricted, but she didn't get around as much as a man,
Right.
I remember being on my farm when we got snowed in. I got snowed in for 3 months. And there was no getting out. I was across a river that you had to ford, but you had to put snowshoes on to get down to the river. There was no bridge, and I would have had to have gone over a little mini mountain to get to my next door neighbor to use their bridge. So I just sent the man. It's the man's job to go on out there and get whatever else
snowshoe away
we needed. But fortunately, I had 150 quarts of green beans, under the stairs, and 150 cans of tomatoes.
Yeah.
Tucked away and squash under my bed. And, so we weren't going to go hungry. But, it was an interesting time. Did you ever get snowed in up here?
Yeah, we got snowed in quite a few times. But a lot of times it will melt. You've got to take the tractor out and plow down the driveway.
Right.
But one year, and I can't remember the year, but we had the most horrible snowstorm.
And you have a long driveway.
Yeah, we do.
A very long driveway.
And a neighbor of ours, he lives down in the valley, in the Gap, and he came up with his plow. He called it the thing. Yeah, that's what I thought. I had no idea what it was, but it was some conglomeration of machinery that he had put together. It had a backhoe, a plow, just everything you'd need, all welded together.
Oh, wow.
And so he brought it up the valley on our uncleared roads, but he didn't need to have them cleared because he
You
had
hear that rooster? I wonder
Yeah,
if our
that's a
listeners can hear
rooster.
that rooster, because
Yeah.
I love that sound.
But anyway, he brought it up to our driveway, and he got about a third of the way up, right where the ridge is, and he got it stuck. And by stuck, I mean it was up to his seat stuck.
Wow.
And he had been claiming all along that this thing will do anything. It'll clear your driveway. It did not clear the driveway.
So what, did he get it out that day?
Oh, no, he had to wait a little bit. But I think he wound up bringing a long, long chain, and I don't know if he had driven the chain into something, but he inched it. He did a come-along thing.
Oh, wow,
and
yeah.
inched it backwards.
Wow.
To where he could drive it frontwards or backwards. And he tried driving it backwards out of that big snowdrift, but
And that's even after he had plowed some to get as far as he had.
Yeah.
So you would have thought logically that he would have been able to at
he
least
couldn't-
back up. He
couldn't get
do
it
that.
out.
Yeah, some of the tales, I used to get snowed in from before Thanksgiving, and there would still be snow at Easter, when Easter came early.
Sure,
Like
yeah.
in March or early April.
Yeah.
I mean, it just stayed on the ground.
That's
And-
one thing about Highland County is you can never be sure that Easter will be time to wear Easter outfits.
That's right.
I
Well-
need my muck boots.
Well, we used to actually, that was the time when we would bring in our wood. Because we used to bring it in with our wood horse. He was
Yeah,
our workhorse,
it's our
and we
workhorse.
used him to skid in the timber that we would cut down in our woodlot. And the reason we chose the snowy times to do it, it was a
Yeah.
little risky. You could break your ankles out there jumping back and forth over the logs. You would snub nose the front of the log, and then they would hit the rocks because it was so rocky on our farm, which is not uncommon out here
Sure.
in Highland. There are definitely lots of rocks. But the snow would allow you to skid it up more easily.
Right.
And so that's when we brought in our wood.
Yeah.
And it was fun because, it was hot and tedious, but it wasn't then, And they say wood warms you twice.
Yep.
You cut it and you're hot, and you sit by the stove and you're hot. And that just reminds me of how charming it is to be in this culture out here, because the wood stove is an iconic item in everybody's life.
Oh, yeah.
Almost everybody has one. I'm here with you. You have one.
Mm-hmm. I have
had
two.
one. Yes, and lots of people have two, because you can only. People sealed up the rooms that they used.
and the ones that they didn't want to, they had to lock them off.
That they did, and
we still do that.
And in my bedroom, on my farm, I would build, and it's called banking a fire, so that you stuffed it as good as you could with wood that would burn a long time and produce a lot of heat. Like locust was a really good wood to stuff in there. It would burn a long time. But when I woke up in the morning, I had to wear a cap on my head. And you see these pictures, me and my kerchief, my monitor, nightcap. I mean, nightcaps were serious business, because I would actually, before we re-sided our old farmhouse, I would have snow on my pillow.
Yeah.
Because the fire would be gone. We had our chamber pot, which was, it was too far to the outhouse in the middle of the night, or even after it was dark. You didn't want to go stumbling on out there and open the gate and go all the way on. So we had a chamber pot and a nice sealed little cabinet. And there would be ice in the chamber pot. And that was after I went to bed in a nice warm room. That's how cold and how fast it would get cold.
Oh, yeah. Our bedroom was like that, too.
Yep.
I didn't have any snow on my pillow, but I did have snow that had blown underneath the window and drifted out on the floor, which was a hardwood floor.
Wow.
And no carpet, of course.
But
You didn't press around when you woke up in the morning and put your feet down.
No, there was no, you didn't lounge. I had no lounging pajamas or robe. You get up.
You get up.
Well, you sleep in your long underwear. I remember sleeping. Long underwear is serious business out here
it is.
in the wintertime. Because it seems, first of all, it's 10 degrees colder than it is. This show is being produced, going to be aired in Roanoke. And right now it's 80-something degrees here, 84 maybe. But it's 94 in Roanoke right now. And then the same thing holds true in the wintertime. It's definitely 10 degrees colder.
Oh, at least.
At least.
Yeah.
At least. And the difference is probably even 15 degrees. So it's serious business. But to help you get through the winter, gardens at this time of year are very, very important because everybody's got their long distance eye down the road on the winter
you
that's coming.
Plan
what do you do? What do you do, Darlene? You've always had a beautiful garden. You know what?
Well, less now that I've gotten older.
That's right.
You have to adjust things when you get older.
That's correct.
And we have the 2 wood stoves, I've figured out how to adjust getting the wood in anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my husband's still spry enough to bring it down and stack it on the porch and leave it in the wheelbarrow and everything, but I can't bring the wheelbarrow into the house.
No, you can't.
So
what do you do?
Well,
one log at a time?
No, well, yeah, you could, but I've got this little round disc. It's supposed to be for putting potted plants on. It has wheels on the bottom.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
So I've got one of them.
Oh, and so you stack that up and move it?
Well, I have a... it's funny. I have a bag.
This is an innovative thing.
Yes,
you've done
it is.
here.
It's innovative. I have a bag it's the canvas bag, and I take it outside and I put my wood on it that I'm going to put in my wood cook stove. And then I lay it on that round, and then I pull it all the way to the wood stove and stack the wood into the wood stove.
Now, very clever.
Yeah, and it works for me, and I don't hurt my back.
Well, you have to make do out here because your nearest neighbor is where? I mean, you can't even see a neighbor from
you
can't
where
you
see
are.
a neighbor.
You're just...
If I saw a neighbor, I'd be upset. I love my neighbors.
Well, we were sitting on the porch this morning, and I could hear a neighbor working on a fence.
Right. A tree fell across it.
He was a half a mile from here. But you could hear him, and you even knew who it was.
Yes, we do.
And it was just...
We knew that the tree fell across the fence.
I hardly know who one of my neighbors is that lives, who's 25, 50 feet away from me in the house next door. We've got a screen of trees and stuff, but, I hardly know who they are and what they're doing, and you know what's going on a half a mile away. Yeah. It's just funny the way sound travels out here.
Well, we get to get on the four-wheeler and go down and see what's happening.
Ah, that's it. Four-wheelers are a real asset.
They are.
They didn't have four-wheelers. Did they have four-wheelers 40, 50 years ago? Not
had
like they do now.
three-wheelers.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
And you use those. They use four-wheelers. What does your husband use them for? He goes out and checks on the cows, right?
Right. He carries salt up to them.
Checks the fence?
Checks the fence. He drove up and checked the spring box the other day before you got here.
Because it was dry.
Yes, it's very dry.
Very dry. And so tell me about your spring box. Don't you have 3?
We have 3 springs that feed the spring box.
Right.
And 2 of the springs aren't producing any water.
Uh-oh.
And the one up, the highest one up, is producing like a pencil size stream of water. Yeah.
So it's whatever.
So then it comes down and gets in the reservoir, and then it builds up all day.
Right, I got you.
And then...
have you ever run out?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Now, you've got a beautiful spring lower.
Yeah, very
down from the house. Because
we'd have to have a pump,
you got a great big trough that, for the animals and everything.
But you have to have a pump to get the water up to the house. And when your electric goes off...
Right.
You don't have a pump.
Well, you could bucket it, Darlene.
Yes, we have bucketed it before.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah, many a time I'd be standing in the shower and Chip would be standing up above me with a bucket with holes in it and sprinkling the water down so I could take the shower.
Well, I didn't even have on my farm. I had no no running water, no electricity, and I had to haul it from the spring. And I remember standing outside with water that I had heated on the wood stove, carried outside in a bucket, mixed with some other colder water, and then just poured it over myself. It was November. The snowflakes were coming down, and I'm out there, taking a bath. But you do what you have to do. And,
Sure.
it really makes you hardy. I know I was a lot younger, but I was also, healthy as an ox. I mean, there's something to be said with facing off with nature in those ways that challenge and stimulate your metabolism.
Yeah, I guess so.
I ate right. I got lots and lots of exercise. And I was outdoors a lot. I mean, we were outdoors all the time. You were
I
either
think it
feeding
really
animals.
helps to be outdoors.
It does help to be outdoors.
Yeah. Changes your mentality.
Yep. Matter of fact, now they've got a whole new in vogue focus on grounding. You've heard of what
I've heard of
grounding
that.
is. All right. What it is you're in contact with the magnetism of the Earth's surface. And they even have special grounding shoes that are supposedly, you pat around in those. They're like little moccasins. The best thing to do, of course, is not to have shoes on, which is harder in this type of
You're not kidding.
climate. I mean, and not just the
Step
climate,
on a
but
bumblebee.
you step on stuff.
Yeah.
It's rocky, and there's sticks, and everything's raining down out of the trees, and it's not the ideal environment for that. But I imagine there are ideal environments, tropical stuff, and walking on the beach, it's good. But they say even if you just do it, an hour or two a day, it's good for you. But the secret is to be basically in bare feet.
Yeah. Not me. I'm tenderfoot. I'm a tenderfoot anymore. Used to be I'd be real tough, but not anymore.
Tell me about, it's a wonderful community, and it has transitioned a lot even since I was here. When I was here, there was the greatest generation still alive. Now, they are not alive. Those are
Right.
the people that have, the members of the greatest generation now would be 100 plus.
Mm-hmm.
The people that came, and then their children left. They left for the city because it was very, very hard to make a living out here.
Right.
And I was part of the hippie back to the earth contingent that came from the cities looking for an opportunity to farm and raise a family in the country. And I learned so much from everybody, but and so I'd like to just take a little bit and reflect on some of the changes. For instance, I had no way to bathe other than the way we've already talked about. And so I used to come in to a motel.
Yeah.
Here in Monterey at the corner of 250 and 220.
Mont Valley.
Mont Valley. And that was the sweetest woman in there because she would let myself, my husband, and a brand new baby take a room for 2 hours and take a bath.
Mrs. Buzzard.
Mrs. Buzzard. And you've got a wonderful tale about Mrs. Buzzard because that motel is no longer here.
It's no longer here.
What's in its place now? Did they put something?
Yeah, the dollar store.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That's where the dollar store is. And that's the only place to go to get there are a few other places, but a lot of the old-timey
there's a Dollar
places
General
transition.
and a Dollar Tree.
Oh,
and they put
both
the dollar.
here?
Yeah, I couldn't
Both
believe
here
it.
in this little town, Monterey has 300 people, and the county has 2,200 people, and you're telling me that there's a Dollar General?
And a Dollar Tree.
Oh, that is bizarre.
Yeah.
That is really bizarre. Tell me about Mrs. Buzzard, though. It's a funny story that you have about your mom and Mrs. Buzzard.
Well, when my husband and I got married, Mrs. Buzzard let us have rooms for when my folks came or anybody that came really to the wedding. And they were lovely rooms. Back then, when we got married, the color was orange and brown and avocado.
That's right.
And any other colors were not in vogue. Well, I opened the door to her room that she let us have, and it was all pastel pink and pastel blue. And I thought, oh, well, she's a lovely lady, and I really appreciated that. But it was so out of vogue. And then she had these Chanel. Do you remember the Chanel bedspreads?
Yeah, Chenille.
Yeah.
Yes, I do, and I had one. I loved them. They were soft. They had a wonderful pattern of tufted yarns on the top.
Yep.
They were fun. They were cotton.
Yes. Well, my
And she had them
mom
all
used to have one, but she had those, and I thought, boy, that's really out of vogue. But anyway, it didn't matter because we had this nice room, and it was extremely clean. And so she let us stay there for the wedding. And anyway, my mom just really loved her. I mean, she met her, and this was the nicest lady.
She was a beautiful, beautiful woman. The sweetest.
You know, for the
most
life
generous,
of me,
good-hearted.
I cannot remember her first name, but I told my mom that her first name was Mrs. and Mrs. Buzzard. But anyway, my mom made real good friends with her, and Mrs. Buzzard gave her a house plant, which my mother took home and just cherished. And so when I went home one time, she showed me this plant, and it was a lovely plant. And I said, gee, Mom, where'd you get that plant? And she said, when I came up to your wedding, the lady that ran the Mont Valley Motel gave it to me. And I said, well, you know, you've taken real good care of it. You know, she really liked plants. And she said, yes. She said, I call my plant Mrs. Buzzard. I said, what? She said, Mrs. Buzzard is the name of the plant. I said, but her name's Mrs. Buzzard. And she said, oh, but Mrs. Buzzard, I just never could call her Mrs. Buzzard. I just called her Mrs. Buzzard. It's just too rude.
I really understand. I do understand. My married name was Roach.
Yeah.
And I really understand the fact that it's hard to appreciate some of these, you know, names that have connotations way beyond significance.
Yeah, that's right.
Way beyond.
And who knows where Buzzard came from? I mean, it's probably...
It's a family name. There are lots of buzzards out here.
I know, but it's probably some German derivative or something like that.
You know, I'll tell you something else. I actually saw a picture of one of her ancestors. There's a cemetery here. I don't think I could get there now, but I saw it in the full moon. So I was out. It's not that I was rambling through cemeteries in the full moon, but I had occasion to check out this one because I'd heard about it. There are pictures under glass or under something.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that before.
You've seen those. Well, there was a buzzard.
A tintype.
Yes.
Underneath
there was a buzzard,
glass.
and it's eerie looking because here you are staring at somebody who is just a few feet underneath you or represented. And it was an interesting tradition that they no longer do.
Right.
But it is, it's powerful when you walk into a cemetery with pictures, and there is definitely one here in Highland County. I just don't know, or very close by.
Yeah, we've got a couple cemeteries around real close.
And there are, you know, you'll travel down a road and you'll spot a hill and it'll be fenced off, and you can, you know, people had ground to bury themselves, you know, on their own farms. You know, it was totally legal to do that. But, you know,
I think
they chose,
it's still legal, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And they chose church lots to be, you know, fenced and tended, and some of these things are still being tended.
And some of them are not tended.
Of the church, yeah.
You know, you'll be walking on your property and see a flat rock and turn it over or start looking at it, and it's engraved with somebody's name.
Wow.
And the cows have knocked it over, and it's been knocked over for 100 years.
Isn't that something? Well, Darlene, let's meet again on the front porch next Friday at noon. And should anyone out there need moving help, call Anna at Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services, 540-556-5800. We are grateful to Fox News 910 and 104.3. May God bless you all.